Hey guys, Mark here from Red Star, and welcome to the Red Star Show. Thanks for tuning in whatever way you are. So, today we're going to talk about 5 tips for finding a good breeder. Dog shopping is one of my favorite things to do. It's one of my favorite things to shop for. Even if I honestly have no intent on purchasing anything, I just really like to talk to different breeders and find out. It kind of gives me a sense of the breeding climate, you could say, of what's important to people and what people are focusing on, and across the board, whether I have nothing to do with that breeder or whatever. For example, a couple of years ago, I was just kind of binging on Irish Wolfhounds, which I love Irish Wolfhounds, and I talked to 4 or 5 breeders just to see, like, maybe someday I'll get an Irish Wolfhound. It'd be really interesting to know what people are doing in terms of breeding and what they're focusing on and things like that, as well as shopping for clients. Shopping for clients is one of my favorite things to do, because I generally do, in a very polite and kind way, and kind of skeptically interrogate everyone. And I ripped that off from Carl Sagan. I thought that's a really great way to describe how I am when I'm shopping for dogs, because I just kind of think that unless you can substantiate the claim, whatever you're telling me isn't true. Okay, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in not only dog breeding, but dog training, where people will guarantee certain things, or, oh yeah, they'll do this and they'll do this, and they can do this and they can do this, and, well, have you done that? Well, no, but they're bred for it. Like you go to a breeder who's breeding collies, and you really are passionate about herding, and you want to herd, and they're telling you, oh yeah, they can herd, while none of the dogs in their lines or their breeding program have ever really competed successfully in herding. So these are the things you kind of want to look for. So here are 5 questions, actually, that I like to ask breeders. First thing I like to ask them, first thing I like to ask is, what is your main goal as a breeder, or your main goals? So a lot of times breeders, are they just breeding for money to make puppies so that they can sell puppies? Or are they actually trying to improve their bloodline? Are they and then within that, what are they doing? Are they trying to improve the temperament? Are they trying to improve the structure, the physical structure? Are they trying to improve the health, which goes deeper than physical structure into, certain breeds have certain problems. Are they trying to eradicate these problems within their program? Are they, breeding for show? Are they breeding for work? What are their goals as a breeder? What are they trying to do with their breeding program? Because that's really going to tell you, whether it's someone who's really passionate about the breed and really trying to do it right with a lot of integrity, or it's someone who's just trying to make some money putting puppies out there. So, and a lot of times, unfortunately, with dogs, you do get what you pay for. So when you have a dog that's more expensive, a lot of times there's a lot behind that. There's a lot of health testing. There's a lot of service that comes from the breeder. Okay, in terms of having a relationship with your breeder. So always ask, what are their main goals as a breeder? Okay, and then kind of take it from there. The second thing I like to ask is, how long have they been breeding? Somebody recently, well, not too recently, maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, was looking at German Shepherds and was calling us about, well, I can't remember if they were calling us about Malinois or something like that, or calling us about training, but it ended up that, it sounded like she wanted a German Shepherd, and she had looked at a couple of breeders, I think, and found one breeder relatively close, and was going to come here for training, and asked me if I would call this breeder and kind of see what was going on. And I called the breeder, and the first thing I asked is, okay, so what are your goals as a breeder? That's the first thing. And it was, produce a healthy dog, it's pretty, or something kind of generic. And I said, okay, well, how long have you been breeding? And it was like, or how many litters have you had? I think I asked, and she said 6. And I said, how long have you been breeding? And she said, about a year and a half. And I was like, oh, so the oldest puppy you've produced is only a year and a half years old, which means they're not even eligible for health testing yet. I mean, for certification within health testing. So some of them at least. And I was like, okay, well then, could you tell me where your lines are from so I could look deeper into the pedigree? So, you can find, so if her male comes from here, I can find out what kennel that is, and then I can talk to that breeder and find out if they've had any health issues, or say the female's from another kennel, so on and so forth. And the breeder that I was talking to immediately was threatened. And I went, okay, all right, so you're new at this. That's the thing. You're new at this, and a lot of times, unless you've taken a course in genetics and you fully understand, and even if you've taken a course, it's not like talking to someone who's been breeding a breed with purpose for 40 years. Do you know what I mean? Or even 20. So how long really there's merit to that with hopefully a person that's trying to, again, enhance their line, their breeding program. If they don't care, again, and they're just out there trying to make money, then it's irrelevant how long. So that's the second question I like to ask. And you can play with that depending on who you're talking to in terms of if you want to move forward or you want to go find someone who's had more experience that way. So, and for me, 6 litters was a lot to have in a year of your first. So I was like, okay, these guys are really trying to either get puppies going so they can increase their line, or they're trying to make money. And when someone's just trying to make money, once they have your money, they don't give you, a lot of times your service is gone once they got your money. But when you have people who have a lot of integrity into their program, they value their puppies as like almost their own children, meaning they care about where those puppies go and they care about how you're doing with those puppies. That goes a long, long way, okay? The other thing I like to ask is if they've had any genetic issues. Have they encountered any health issues in their lives? And this brings me to another time I was shopping for. We started with a doodle. A woman came to me, a super sweet girl, and she was, had visual impairment to the point of being almost completely blind, but she was quote unquote not blind enough. That was her website, which was pretty funny. She couldn't get a seeing eye dog. So we decided to she called me and we talked about it, and she wanted the doodle, and I started calling the doodle breeders, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's $1,800. And I asked the guy, well, okay, they're bigger dogs. Do you do any kind of health testing? And he said, well, no, we've never had any problems. And we have some dogs that are 7 or 8 years old now. But still, it's like, okay, that's a ton of money, and you haven't done any health testing, so it's really a crapshoot because hips are really a tricky thing. So I was asking about hips, and then you get other things, thyroid and, heart, and then the diseases and things and conditions. So anyway, I always like to ask if they've encountered anything, and then that's always followed by, do they health test? Okay, and that's the really nice thing right now, is that breeding dogs is expensive. If you do it right, it's expensive. If you don't care, it's cheap and easy money, I guess. Because you sell your puppies for $300, and who cares, right? But if you're going to do it right, you have to. There's a lot at the basics. You got to have solid temperament, which means the dog has to be temperament tested in one way. You have to have health testing, and this is what's so beneficial right now. Is there's through the OFFA.org, Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, they have extensive tests available, and it's all certifiable. So whenever I ask someone if they health test their dogs and they say yes, I always ask, well, where are the records of this? Are they with OFA? It's called OFA, even though it's OFFA. I say, okay, are your dogs, you check the hips? Yeah, I checked the hips. Hips are good. Okay, did you send them into OFA and get the dog certified? Well, no, I didn't do that. I didn't. The hips are good, though. And so me, being a guy who bred and who had to OFA the animals, it costs like $200+ to do the x-ray. It costs like $35 to do the OFA. So if they don't send the results to OFA, that's kind of a red flag for me, telling me that the dog, there's some deficiency, whether it's, whatever they're doing. Because again, the certification is minute in price compared to the cost of the x-ray itself, or whatever it is you're doing, the test. So I always ask people, and it's that ounce of prevention thing. I would rather, now with these available tests, have someone who is testing their animals preemptively, instead of producing puppies and all of a sudden you've got a blind puppy, or you've got a puppy that's, got this or that or whatever the other thing is. So these tests are great, and in my experience, any of the ethical breeders follow these tests and certify to the max, because it's something to be proud of. It's something that's ethically and morally correct, and they should do, but it's also something to be proud of, because it does separate these breeders from the breeders who don't do that. And the breeders who don't do that either don't have the money or don't want to spend the money, And if they don't have the money, then that's a big thing for me, because that tells me, what if something happens to my puppy that I put a deposit down and they're 5 weeks old and you don't have the money to rush the puppy to the vet to save its life? Do you see what I mean? Because that can be a lot more expensive than a $220 test. So these are things you really want to think about. Don't believe the hype. Substantiate all claims. This is why these certifications are great. Then it's just very black and white. Cool, this is this. I bought a poodle when I got into miniature poodles. I had to shop for dogs, and the miniature poodles, while it's a kind of a dying breed, it's not nearly as popular as it was 20, 30 years ago. There are still quite a few breeders, a couple of breeders in my area who had been doing it a long, long time and lots of experience. So I had called around, and the neat thing that I became enlightened to was the fact that these breeders were not against each other. They were all trying to do the same thing, and they were all, selling their own puppies and stuff, but nobody was really saying, well, their puppies are no good, my puppies are better, or this or that or the other thing. They were all saying, well, if you want this, you need to talk to her, and if she knows this, blah, blah, blah. So it was really, really interesting, because I found a dog, and I told the person from the beginning, the breeder, I said, this is my experience. This is what I'm looking for. I asked all the questions about the dog and asked her what she did in terms of breeding. And I had some experience too, so I knew what I was talking about. And I think that was comforting for her, because she knew she wasn't talking to a bonehead, right? So then it turned out she had this dog that was 4 months old, a female, and I wanted the dog for this and this and this. And she said, in order to do this and this, and I wanted to breed the dog, to create a breeding program. And I wanted to start with the strongest genetic possibilities that I could. In terms of character, I wanted a strong dog. In terms of health, I wanted a healthy dog. So with poodles, you have eye issues, and you have, all kinds of potential issues. So she was able to DNA to check the dog's eyes at 4 months old, determining that, for this thing called PRA, which is very common, determining that the dog was an A. So that means they understood genetics so much. She was telling me, okay, she's an A. That means we can breed her to a blind dog, and she'll never produce a blind puppy. And of course, we would never do that. But I was like, wow, this is some genetic predictability. That's comforting. Okay, comforting. So I went through all the steps that I needed to go through in terms of finding a puppy that's suitable for me, that's suitable for the program, that will meet my expectations, hopefully. I understand that I have a lot of work to do in there too, but it was a very interesting experience, because it was my first time going into the show world, and my ideas about the show world had changed dramatically after being involved in a dog show, because as I was part of this thing with these breeders, I ended up having to help. Whether it's brush, and we're talking miniature poodles that are all done up, so whether it's brush the dog or actually handle the dog in the show ring, I had to do a couple. And it was very interesting, because prior to this, and this does bring me to show dogs, because prior to this, my opinion of show dogs and show dog breeders was a kind of a poo-poo opinion, like, big deal. It's a pretty dog, it walks around a ring, it doesn't do anything exciting, they're probably timid and weak and all this stuff. And what I found was the polar opposite. What I found in the show dog world was all of these show breeders, what they want is the same thing the rest of us want. We want to get to our goals, which in their case is being a champion in the show ring, as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort. So you need a certain kind of genetic predisposition to work with. What I found out is the show environment is psychotically crazy. I mean, there's so much going on. It's absolute nuts. And you've got people in and out, and you've got all this kind of stuff. And I realized, wow, all these dogs here are seemingly ultra sound, meaning like confident, not obnoxious, pleasant to be around. And a lot of this stuff is just genetics, because these show handlers are not necessarily behaviorists or trainers, and while they have a good idea of the minds of their dogs, they don't maybe know how to employ certain techniques that'll enhance or dilute whatever characteristics. So it tells me these dogs are genetically kind of this way. So what I found is that in a lot of the show breeders, they're health testing like mad. They're keeping track of the progeny like mad. It's their passion. And they're so immersed in these lines and these possibilities, and if they can get they're passionate about it. And they also have accountability. So when you get into these show lines, a lot of times accountability means they'll take the puppy back if you're in a pinch or something doesn't work out. They have a contract that will honor certain things. And they'll give you service. They'll talk to you when you call them and you have a problem and you're wondering about this. They'll talk to you. This has been my experience. And that's where I always look to start. Unless I'm looking at a particular working dog. If I'm going to go do herding with cattle or sheep, I'm going to call a breeder in Montana who does this kind of thing. But if I'm looking for the general masses, most of us just want cool dogs to hang out with that we can take to the park or that we can have in our home, and it's not going to freak out when people come over and whatever. Going down the show dog route is not a bad move, okay? Because again, these are passionate people who address the health of their dogs in a very meticulous way, know the lines, have been around a long time, and these people are usually pretty much lifers. I haven't met too many people that used to show dogs like professionally or as a passion or breed and don't anymore. Only me. And the only reason it was with me as a breeder is I couldn't deal with the level of responsibility. And, one of my puppies, my Malinois puppies, was returned. And then I rehomed him somewhere. And then I found out maybe 6 months later that he had been rehomed since then and not come back to me, which was contractual. And that destroyed me. And I went, I don't want this responsibility anymore. I'll leave this up to the people that can handle that, the professionals. So, again, shopping for dogs is super fun. Even if you're not in the market, it's super fun. It is. Just to kind of take the temperature of all these breeders and find out what's going on in terms of what's important to them, what their goals are, all these kinds of things. And that will help you come to the conclusion that you need to find the breeder that you're going to feel the most comfortable with. You got to plan on having, hopefully, a relationship with this breeder for the life of the dog. And then if things work out and you love the dog and you love how everything turned out, you can buy another dog from this breeder. And then you're going to have an even more enhanced relationship. And that breeder's going to go, you guys are great. You care about your dogs and blah, blah, blah. Let's get you an even better dog, maybe, right? In terms of whatever. Maybe it's more beautiful, or maybe it's you want more drive and it's got more drive, or it's got more physical ability, whatever. But I know like the return clients for breeders are wonderful because they have already had and nurtured that experience, and it's just a great thing. So, so if you guys are shopping for puppies, go ahead and dive in there, have fun, like really have fun with it. And for me, it's fun. And again, a lot of times I have no interest in getting myself a dog. I'm usually doing it for someone else. So it's one of my favorite things to do, actually. So yeah, get out there, shop for puppies if that's what you're doing, and ask these questions. I'm just going to repeat them real quick so everybody knows. Oh, one final thing, actually. You always ask them at the end if they can provide references. Okay? Can you, and Facebook and things like that, social media, help out a lot with this because breeders will have like a breeder page. And then you can see hopefully pictures of the puppies and how puppies are doing, and if people are excited about their puppies that they have from this breeder and they're excited to share their experiences and share their pictures and stuff, that helps big time. But I always ask, can you provide me some references of people who have had your dogs? And then say sure, and then they usually, if it was me and people asked, I would go and check with someone that I thought this would be a good reference because this person lives in the city and this person lives in the city, or this person lives in the country and this person lives in the country, and this was, the most appropriate dog for them, and then, blah, 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 and this is what I'm thinking for you, so you can go through your references and give them a good couple references. If they don't, that's another huge red flag, right? So, what's their main goals as a breeder, number 1? 2, how long have they been breeding? 3, have they encountered any health issues within their genetic lines? 4, do they test? Do they health test? Okay? And if so, do they certify? And remember, if they test but not certify, big red flag, okay? Again, test, hundreds of dollars, certification, 20, 30, 40 bucks, something like that, I think. I mean, it's been a little while for me, but I can't imagine it being that much more. And then finally, number 5, can you provide references, okay? Reference, contact numbers, emails, whatever it is, some way for you to reach out and get a hold of these other clients of these breeders that have purchased puppies from them. So that is it, you guys. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you find this helpful when you're out shopping for a dog. And that is about it. Got more exciting things coming your way here. Again, Alex couldn't be here. He's busy, and I'm busy, and it's like I try to squeak these in whenever I can, but he's going to hopefully be coming over in the week. I actually had a fantastic conversation. I'm really just actually kind of bubbling inside these last couple days because I've been fascinated with crows for probably, 6 or 7 years now. I don't know why. I just like them. And I've been feeding the crows here at our place, hoping to kind of befriend them, and it's not working at all. They eat all the stuff, but they don't like me, that's for sure. Anyway, I decided to shop around the other day too, and maybe that's what subconsciously prompted me to do this little podcast here about shopping for puppies. But my first contact, I thought, well, let me just look into what it's like to own a crow, because if you want to get a crow here, in the U.S., you can't have a native crow because of the U.S. Migratory Bird Act from 1918. I only know this because I looked in depth, I think 1918. Anyway, so you have to get a crow coming from Africa, basically. It can be bred here, but it has to be a species of crow, which is the pied crow, African pied crow, or an African white-ringed raven, I believe. Which raven's obviously bigger than a crow. So I ended up finding a breeder, and through a little bit of research, found out that this breeder was also a trainer of these birds, these crows and ravens. And he also breeds, all the exotic birds, and not all, but some exotic birds, macaws and things like that. And I ended up talking with him for at least an hour about mostly training, because he's very passionate about training. And then, the birds themselves, of course, the crows and the ravens and the hybrids and character types and how they are. And it was absolutely exhilarating for me. And I'm still kind of riding that high from talking to this guy. And I'm super stoked to say his name's Daniel Walthers out of Georgia. And he's a Minnesota native like myself. And he's going to be on the show. I'm going to have time to talk to him and just kind of pick his brain about training. It's super enlightening. I had no idea that you could take some of the approaches that he was describing with these birds. And long story long, I decided, okay, like talking to this guy, and just the information he provided with me, I said, this guy, this is the real deal. He's really trying to produce healthy animals that go to healthy places that do incredible things. And I thought, this guy is like, if I was going to buy a crow, which, I don't know if I'll ever buy a crow. I'd love one, but still, I don't know. This is the guy I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through him because he obviously has a full understanding of the whole entire thing. So I probably will, if I decide to pull the trigger, shop around some more just to see what else is out there. But boy, when somebody's involved in training, they also are able to, with their animals and their breeding program, they're also able to dive not just into the physiology, but the mind. And it goes way beyond good temperament, thresholds and drives and reactions to stimulus and all this kind of stuff. And when you're actively training, you tap into all this stuff and you know exactly what's there. So when you find a breeder who actually trains, then you found someone who's sound, I think. So anyway, yeah, so maybe... so hopefully you guys will tune in when I have Daniel Walthers on, and we're going to just talk about training and birds, and because crows are insanely intelligent for an animal. We're talking from my understanding, it's like a 7-year-old child. We've got that kind of intelligence. So I'm really excited to talk to him about training, because again, at the end of the day, it's all animal training. So maybe we'll find some tips and things that we can try and use at home with our own training with our dogs, or maybe you're training your cat or your rat or whatever it is. So. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in this week. Mike Ellis again is going to come on here real shortly. Francis Metcalf we've got coming. Got some exciting things coming your way. And Alex is coming back. We're going to talk about lots of things. So, again, thank you for tuning in. You can find us at www.red-star-kennel.com. Again, that's red-star-kennel.com. You can find us on Facebook, Red Star Kennel. Check it out and get out there and have safe training. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.